How's it going here, and welcome to the latest camera comparison video with the Sony Xperia 1 Mark III up against the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra. Now the S21 Ultra is running the latest August 2021 security update, and I've done several camera comparisons with the S21 Ultra, so if you want to check out how the cameras have progressed through all the different updates, be sure to check out those additional camera comparisons on my channel. Now I've taken some feedback from the Xperia 1 Mark III versus Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra camera comparison, and so all the photos were taken out of the Photo Pro app like I've always done, but I've also used manual mode this time to get the best possible photo to how I want to see that photo. And also for the low light shots, I've taken two shots. One shot with the Photo Pro auto mode, so you can see how the camera and how Sony's algorithms decide the scene should look. I took a second shot with manual mode where I tried to simulate more of a night mode kind of a shot where I slow down the shutter speed or bump up the ISO to give you more of that night mode effect. And so you can see how that compares up against the S21 Ultra's night mode. And so that's how I've done all the photos here. All the videos taken out of the Photo Pro app as well. That's where it's going to give you the most stabilization and pretty much access to what most people are going to use for capturing video. And so go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos in both good and low light conditions, and hopefully that'll help you decide which of these two camera systems are going to be best for you. Let me know which one you thought did better and why, and let's go ahead and check out all the photos and video. Everyone, so here's some 4K 30 frames per second video from the rear facing cameras. I'm starting out with the ultra wide angle camera on each, and just to note, as far as colors, people like to know what's true to life, what I'm seeing with my own eyes, and that's pretty much more natural on the Sony from what I can see. The sky's a very, very light grayish blue right now, so it's not nearly as blue as what the S21 Ultra is depicting. And I'll just pan around to give you a feel for the field of view and what these ultra wide angle lenses look like here in this particular setting. And I'll go ahead and start to switch over to the main lens right now. And here we are back with the main lens. Now the Xperia 1 Mark III does not allow me to change between the lenses while recording, so I had to stop, change the lenses, and restart the recording. And I'll just pan around here to give you a feel for what these main lenses look like and how they compare here in this particular setting. And we'll pan over here to the right and we'll test zoom on that cell tower. So on the 1 Mark III, I'm on the 24mm lens. I can only zoom in 3 times on that. If I want to continue to zoom, I'd have to stop the recording, change the lens, and then continue to zoom from there. On the S21 Ultra, I can go to 3 times telephoto and another 10 times here. And I can move all the way up to a 20 times digital on the S21 Ultra. So that's actually a pretty clear zoom for being 20 times digital there. Let's go ahead and back that out to 1 times on each. And let's test autofocus here out on the post with the Xperia first. So let's get that to focus. It focused up and away. One more time. And away. And one more time with the Xperia. There we go. And let's go ahead with the S21 Ultra. So focus is a little bit faster here on the S21 Ultra to me. And looking good there. So let's go ahead and test stabilization here as I walk down the steps. So obviously Sony has its steady shot stabilization, which is looking super stable in other tests that I've done. So we'll see how that compares here to the stabilization at 4K on the S21 Ultra. We'll pan up here and see how they handle this afternoon sunset or sunlight here. Everyone, so here's some front-facing video from both phones at 1080p, 30 frames per second. Now, of course, the S21 Ultra can shoot up to 4K, but the Xperia 1 Mark III is limited to 1080p recording on its front-facing camera still, so I want to keep everything the same as far as resolution and frame rate were considered. And so, obviously, I'm starting out in some fairly even lighting conditions because I want to show you what these cameras can look like in the best possible lighting to get you the best possible footage. And so, as I start to pan around here, you start to see how the footage changes, how the image quality changes, and starts to adjust for the changing lighting conditions. So you can see the harsher afternoon light behind me right there and what that looks like. And at least in the viewfinder, the S21 Ultra is actually doing a pretty good job of keeping the overall image exposed versus kind of blowing out the background like you're seeing on the Xperia right there. So we can keep panning around until we get back to this position here. So you can see how that really changes the lighting situation and the exposure on both phones. The S21 Ultra seems to be handling that a little bit better. And as you start walking, we'll test the stabilization. And the Sony steady shot stabilization is actually looking pretty good in my previous test, so we'll see how that compares to the S21 Ultra here on the front-facing camera. But there's a quick front-facing clip on the Xperia 1 Mark III and the S21 Ultra. Let me know what you think. Alright, so here's some low light video in 4K 30 frames per second. This is the ultra wide angle lens on each of the phones here. So I'm just going to pan around to give you a feel for what these ultra wide angle lenses look like and how they compare in this kind of a lighting situation here. And a bit of low light, but obviously with some pretty decent lighting going on here. And those lights are flickering. It's not the camera doing that, in case you're wondering. So again, here's the ultra wide angle cameras on each to start. And here are the main wide angle lens on each. And as you can see, the S21 Ultra is trying to brighten up the scene a lot more than the One Mark III. You can see the trees against that skyline now a lot more clearly on the S21 than you could in the ultra wide angle lens. And on the Xperia 1 Mark III, at least in the viewfinder, it's still blended into that skyline. And so I'll go ahead and pan over here to the bright street light so you can see how it's doing into that bright light. And the S21 Ultra, again, at least what I can see in the viewfinder, is definitely flaring that out a lot more. But let's go ahead and pan around this way and start walking to test stabilization, as well as to see how both of these phones handle that transition from that really bright scene over to a much darker area here. And pay attention to more jitters and low light as far as stabilization. It's a lot harder to stabilize with less light. And already from what I can see as we transition over here, it's getting a lot darker, and the S21 Ultra is definitely trying to brighten everything up a lot more than the Xperia 1 Mark III is, at the expense of a lot of noise on the S21 Ultra. Let's go ahead and pull up here and pan up into the night sky to give you a feel for what that looks like here. And as I always say, there is a bit of light pollution here, but S21 Ultra definitely a lot more noise than the Sony, at least what I can see here for now. Let's go pan over here where there's a little bit of a mixed lighting situation down a darker alleyway, but with some lighting here. And the S21 Ultra definitely still trying to brighten this up a lot more than the Sony. So there's a 4K clip from both phones here. So here's some low light video from the front facing cameras at 1080p 30 frames per second. That is the max resolution and frame rate on the Xperia 1 Mark III. The S21 Ultra can obviously shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second, but I want to keep everything the same here as far as resolution and frame rate. And obviously I'm starting out in some ideal lighting conditions outdoors here. You can see all the bright lights around me. So both of these front facing cameras have every opportunity to show you the very best image quality that they possibly can right now. And I'll pan over here to the left and to the right of me so you can kind of see the street lights way behind me there as well, and how they're performing into these bright lights. Let's go ahead and start walking to test stabilization, as well as to move over to a bit of a darker area so you can see how they do in a bit darker light. And we'll also be walking over here to a fountain to the right of me so you can kind of hear and test the microphones and how well it does with the sound of that background noise. And so we'll go ahead and pull up here and pan around so you can see the really bright street lights behind me, the collection of them back there, and how they're doing. And the S21 Ultra is actually flaring those out a little bit more from what I can see right now. And let's move back over here into this darker area so you can see what this looks like here in this kind of a light side by side. And obviously the Xperia 1 Mark III is definitely struggling a lot more in this lower lighting situation. But let me know what you thought about all the photos and videos that you've seen in both good and low light conditions. Let me know which one you preferred and why. I have a feeling that most people are going to like one or the other, given how they take opposite approaches pretty much to their image processing and everything else with the camera systems there. So let me know what you think. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you preferred and why. Any questions or comments as well, drop me a comment. I'll try to answer what I can. As always, thanks for watching.